Luckily, there's a sommelier guy. Luckily, there's a sommelier, where we review wines that won't break the bank. Where we review wines that won't break the bank. Where we review wines. Where we review wines. Where we review wines. It seems today that all you see is violence in the Ukraine and slop on your feed. But where are those good old-fashioned videos on which we used to rely? Luckily, there's a sommelier guy. Welcome back to the Budget Sommelier. My name is Luke, your gracious host as ever, and this is the Budget Sommelier, the only show where we review wines that won't break the bank. Today, dear viewer, we are looking at another Aldi wine. It is Vinho Verde, Dominican Republic, the original controller from Portugal. Now, I picked this up at the old Aldi here in the new place, this new city I live in, where we went to Aldi and they had a Vinho Verde. Now, I've had the Trader Joe's Vinho Verde. Maybe we'll review that one later. Maybe we already reviewed that one. You know, it's been so long, it's hard to remember what we've done and what we haven't done. But this is a Vinho Verde. It is from Aldi. It sells for $6, right? That's not a bad deal, especially for the amount of wine you got. Now, the ladies were over for a book club. Of course, it wasn't my book club, but my wife's book club, and we got a bunch of bottles, and they went through them. So no, a little bit of a spoiler alert, but this is a quality wine. We'll get to the review shortly. But first, I want to talk a bit more about Vinho Verde. Now, of course, in Portuguese, which is it's an Italianate language from the Latin port of call, right? So Portugal, port of call. This was a term for the state that abutted the crown of Castile in the 15th century. Now, Portugal, right? This used to be a great place. This used to be a world power, controlling places, all of Brazil, different parts in the coast of Africa, even into India. One of the premier world powers in the 15th century. Now it's sort of a backwater, one of these. It's basically an Epcot country, right? It's a tourism board with a military since they gave up their empire in the 1970s. Well, really, they've given up their empire more than once. So it's kind of a small little country. It's kind of one of these, little places in Europe that don't really matter anymore. But if you play Europa Universalis 4, or Crusader Kings, or gosh, even certain mods for Hearts of Iron, you may be familiar with the country of Portugal. But now, that's not the only reason we chose this wine. Not only did we choose this wine today because of its flavor, because of its cost, because of its relevance to Europe. I like Europe, and I like video games. Not only because of that, but also because, hey folks, the World Cup's happening. Isn't that crazy? The World Cup, when all of the countries of the world gather together to play soccer. So if you are looking to see, I want to get in, I want to explore, I love soccer, and I want to explore wines from the teams that are playing in the World Cup. Well, congratulations. This video is for you. Now, could you believe if that was real? Do you think I care about soccer or the World Cup? This is the Budget Sommelier, not the Budget Sommelier, so we don't really care about soccer. It is irrelevant that the World Cup is happening. No true-blooded American cares that it's happening. I mean, they're having the World Cup a month before the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You tell me, Patriot viewer, you tell me which one of these events matters more. Now to the wine. You'll notice that this is a screw bottle cap, so there's not going to be a pop test. We won't be able to test the pop. But we will be able to test the smell. Let's see. Oh, you're really getting that wet. You're really getting that wet smell. It sort of smells wet. In fact, the bottle's wet. Dear viewer, I might have to pour this one because I don't know if I'm smelling the wetness of the bottle or the wetness of the Vinho Verde. So why don't we give this a pour? Of course, we have our crystalline wine glass, proper receptacle. So, as a sommelier, it's important to be able to evaluate the wine objectively. So typically what sommeliers do, like myself, is they'll have some, they'll pour a little bit, they'll taste it, they'll do the mouth thing, and they'll tell you the notes, the flavor notes, right? That's why you're all here, to hear about the flavor notes in a $6 bottle of wine. So I'm going to give you the flavor notes. So here we go. Aldi's $6 Vinho Verde wine. That is hot stuff. You can find that at one location. That, of course, would be Aldi. So what are we getting? We're getting a little bit of acid, a little bit of acidic. I don't really like sweet wines. I, of course, am a married man. I'm married to a woman. So I'm not a big fan of sweet wines. So this is a bit of a drier white wine. So what jumps out at you, right? What jumps out at you is the whiteness of the flavor. It's a very... if you're familiar with white wines, it's sort of a white wine taste. That's what you get first. Second, you get that acidity. You get that acidity, right? You know, when you have when you put a citrus zin in, you're not drinking anything. That acidity that you're familiar with. That's a common touch point that my viewers will understand. You get that acidity second. Third, you get apples. Isn't that nice? Green apples, like a Granny Smith first picked in late September. I don't know if they grow in September. This isn't the budget horticulturalist. This is the budget sommelier. So you get apple, you get white wine, you get acid, you get apple. And it all comes together to make just a delicious wine. And at $6 a bottle, you can get a bunch of these for your next party, which, like I said earlier, is something I've done. Get a bunch of them. Put them in the fridge. Leave them in there for as long as you need. Invite all your friends over, because if you're a budget sommelier viewer, you have tons of friends. And your tons of friends want to come to your house to drink wine, and the wine you should serve them is Aldi's $6 Vinho Verde. I rate this one as drinkable on the drinkability scale. It is a great price for what you get. You do not need to get one of these. Look, you don't need to get a real champagne. You don't need to get a German Riesling. You don't need to get, you definitely don't need to get a California Chardonnay. Anything but Chardonnay. Don't forget, go watch the other episode. What you need to get for your summer party, for your World Cup viewing party, no. For your America 250th July 4th Patriot Barbecue, of course, get beer for your male friends. But for your wives' friends, get yourself a bottle of Aldi's Vinho Verde, $6. Great deal. This has been the Budget Sommelier. I hope you'll tune in next time where we review another wine that won't break the bank.